Okay, got a engine checklist. Okay, I don't know if you can read that, but it says P2076 intake manifold tuning valve position sensor switch circuit range performance bank 1A. That's one of one codes in the upper right there. On other occasions, I've gotten P0101 as well, which is the mass airflow being out of whack. We're going to take the negative cable off the battery here. That does a couple of things. First of all, we're going to be working with some of the plugs, electrical plugs on the mass airflow indicator, etc. So it's a safety thing. The second is it will reset the check engine light, which we don't want to mistake as a false success when we start the car up later. Okay, I'm going to start by removing the airbox. There are two Torx heads. I'm not sure what size, but you undo them. The airbox is connected to this hose. We're going to disconnect the hose. I'm going to leave this airflow sensor connected and gently move the box out of the way when I get done. But don't let these screws here drop down into the engine block. One along the side here, one on the back. They're very coarse thread screws. Two of them. I'm going to set them off to the side here. Now using a flathead screwdriver, release this clamp here. Now, if any crack in the box here, or in this hose, or any leak can result in that P0101, that airflow mass indicator problem. I'm going to take this off gently, lift this up. It sort of pivots right here. There's three little latches, so sort of rotate it up, being careful not to damage this. Just slide that off to the side. Take out the air filter, and then I'm going to pull the air box up. There's a pressure fitting on the two on the side, one in the back, and then there's the air intake. Basically, we're going to rock it up and forward. Pull that bottom one out first. Kind of move it toward the center. You just kind of pull it up and wiggle it out. There's nothing to it except a little bit of pressure. And here there's two pressure grommets, or rubber grommets, one down here at the bottom, and then the air intake. Okay, now one of the things that the P0101 code says is check for frayed wires, you know, to the airflow sensor. I mean, this thing looks like it's pretty well protected. It doesn't look frayed. It doesn't look loose. The socket or the connection looks solid. So I don't think there's any loose wires there, and there don't appear to be any cracks or anything in the actual cover on the airbox. There's no place to get a screwdriver in here, so what I did is I got a 11/32 ratchet, set it up to loosen. I'm going to come in from behind. I'm going to strap up. Again, be careful not to drop anything down in the engine area. Once it's loose enough, you can do it with your fingers. it's not real easy to get off. Gotta kind of break loose. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is do a real close inspection of this, because one of the P0101 indicators is air getting in through cracks in this thing. So flex it. This one's already been replaced, but I'm double checking, make sure it looks like it's in good shape. Now, if you come from the throttle body up here, there's a electrical connection, and it's kind of got one of these latches. You have to pull the latch out in order to be able to loosen it up. So I'm going to work on that off camera. Okay, this is really important. On both of the electrical, both the mass air and the and this one, when you slide this white locking mechanism out, you can't get this thing off without pressing the black metal or the black clamp down. When you push with your thumb, you slide that white cap out, and then you put your thumb on the top, push down, and then it comes off pretty easily. The same is true of this. When you slide the red piece out, there's a little black tongue in there you got to push down on in order to get this to disconnect. Using a little screwdriver, and it's like a C-clamp. Be careful not to lose this in the back in the engine. On the back side there's a little hoop that you can slide that in, and you can get the you can slide it in like that and pull it out, but be very careful not to drop it in the engine area. Rotate it a little bit, and it comes up pretty easily. Now I'm going to leave it back down there momentarily to keep the dirt out of it. Okay, what I found was when I pull this pressure clamp here out of the way, I couldn't get this. It's about a 4-inch, 5-inch angled rubber hose. Well, there's a tube that brings in antifreeze right here at the top end of this hose, and another one of these clamps where you squeeze together and then you release the pressure. So I disconnected the top half, and then when I get the throttle body out, I'll take this piece off. Okay, there's one more connection. We come here, this is the one we released earlier, can pull it out of the way. You'll see there's a hose that comes down here to, looks like a sort of a half moon clamp of some sort. This one is connected with a really odd connector. It's not a C-clamp, it's not a hose pipe. But you'll notice that this black hose that comes up comes across the back. So instead of trying to solve the problem at that end, I came to the antifreeze return line, comes up here to the reservoir, and there's a traditional pipe hose clamp with a C compression fitting here. So I took my vice grip, squeezed it, slid it over, and then disconnected this little plastic tube from it. And again, it's got antifreeze in it, so I just taped it off. Then back along this pipe, there are two little plastic C-clamps that hold it in place. You just pop them up from underneath with your fingers. They come free pretty easily. Okay, I had to put together a little tool here using my ratchet, a Torx wrench, and a little extender, and I taped it all together so it wouldn't fall down in the engine block. And there are 4 Torx bolts, whatever you want to call them, I guess. They're bolts. I'm going to break them loose. Careful not to break any of the other hoses around it. Now once I get that done, take it out and take the ratchet off and use it kind of like a screwdriver. Okay, the bolts are that long. They unthread. Just the last portion of them is actually threaded in, so you don't have to crank too much. You can see this little hose right here. It's drooping down, so I'm going to re-secure that in a moment. It's not really hard to get these out, but it is a little, when you're stooped over, and just be careful not to drop anything down in the engine area there, if you can. I dropped a wrench the other day and it was a pain to get out. Okay, so the 4, but now this hose here is loose, so I can pull the whole throttle body out with that hose still connected to it. I'm not sure which is the best way to, okay. So rotate it forward a little bit. Bring this hose with you. Gotta untangle them. All right. Okay, a couple basic things. Remember always to wear gloves and eye protection, especially when you're spraying that carburetor cleaner stuff. I just used the throttle body cleaner. They say that the throttle body cleaner is gentler than the carburetor cleaner, but this company doesn't seem to think so. Now that it's out, if the front of the car is, that direction, this is approximately the orientation that it's in the car. We pulled that little white lever out, pushed and pulled the electrical connector. We pulled the C-clamp off the back of this and then disconnected this. I tried to use this pressure clamp here and move it up and then break loose, but I couldn't, break the rubber free from the metal without, risking damaging it. So what I did is I came up and I did this C-clamp and disconnected the antifreeze line, the little antifreeze line that comes in here. Okay, if you see the antifreeze, it comes around, comes down through this loop and back up and out to this one. And the same thing was true on this side. I still don't know how to do this without breaking it. So rather than disconnect this piece, and I know it can be done, I don't see a way, and I don't want to break it because it's several years old. I found that it was easier to follow this line up and around, and over here do the pressure clamp, slide it off, disconnect the hose, and just take it out together. So then, now that we're out, some people say don't move your butterfly valve, and I'm not going to move it much, but this is the position that it sits in, but it can go to the full vertical position. And there was some carbon buildup there, especially on the back side. So, you know, I used cleaner and a soft toothbrush, nothing metal, and because there was some buildup in that rim that would prevent it from going full flat, I had to adjust the butterfly valve enough to scrub that out. But generally speaking, it's probably a good idea to minimize moving that flutter valve or butterfly valve, because it's connected to a gearbox in here, so the less you move it, the better. There is a safety concern if you try and do any work on this while it's on the car and it has electricity, that you can actually get your finger basically cut off if you stick it in there. And it's got some one video I saw said that it had an anti-ice, anti-frost protocol, which will drive it shut. And so if your finger's in there when it decides to do that, you could hurt yourself. So we took the battery off, and of course we're doing it disconnected entirely, so it's not really any risk with that sort of thing. So get it cleaned up, make sure that this line here is clean. I didn't remove these, but if you were replacing this, you'd have to remove this and put this hose on the new one. So now we're going to go put it back in the car. This is the new throttle body that I got from PartsGeek. You can see that it's got the electrical adapter here, the two plugs, and here's the antifreeze that goes in the top. And then on the bottom side, that hose that will go from here to here, I'll have to scavenge off of the old throttle body. Okay. There'll be a little bit of hydraulic or antifreeze in here, so when you take this hose off of the old one, I used a vice grip, set it for, I don't know, about a little over 1/4 inch. Squeeze it, get to where the clamp is loose, slide it off to the side. Now, you'll almost certainly have to try and break this loose. You might be able to do it with your fingers, but gently use your vice grips sort of up here near the top and sort of work it back and forth a little bit, just enough to where it kind of breaks the seal that's formed. Alright, and then slide it off. So biggest thing is don't damage this when you take it off. I've already done this side. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this one here. Salvage it. Remember, we took the hose off, the little hose off, rather than trying to do this inside the car. Loosen it up. This one was a real bear. It's got a little bevel on it, and there's quite a bit of black where the rubber was really clinging pretty tight. But took the old one off, took the one that looped here, and that leaves this one right here. Okay, this is by far the least desirable connection. I don't know if you can see real well, but I'm using a small eyeglass screwdriver. I slowly pried this up, and basically I held the throttle body between my knees, and with my left hand I pulled out on this while I worked on the little wedges here. What do we call them? Latches. And once I got the latches out from around this here, they slid right off. But be real careful. You don't want to break this hose, or you're going to have to buy a new one. Good news is this goes on a lot easier and comes off. You just stick it in and push it in, and these clips go out and grab around, and it's on there pretty snug. Okay, as I reinstall this, I want to make sure that I don't damage that O-ring or gasket. I'm not sure exactly what to call it. So I'm going to slide the hose back in here, pull the cables out of the way. I'm going to thread this back in. I want to make sure I don't break it. Get it lower in here, and then I'm going to flex the antifreeze line a little bit, get it to where I can rotate it and get it approximately in position. Move this hose out of the way, one that's going across the engine, and I'm going to look down here now and sort of visually align it. There we go. And then I'm going to get my 4 screws and get them snugged up. Okay, now that I got the first one in, I'm going to kind of align with my fingers. I got the second bolt already kind of laying in there. I'm going to work it until it bites a little bit. Alright, threading is started. You can see I'm using a Torx screwdriver this time. Take up most of the slack. I'm just going to pull it gently snug, not real hard, because now I have 2 bolts in, so the alignment should be pretty good. Not going to torque them down too hard. Then I'm going to put the 3rd one in and the 4th one, and then I'll start that one doesn't seem to be catching. There it goes. I think. Yep, it caught. And last but not least, and now I'm going to alternate and tighten these down, going caddy corner, make sure that they snug up nice and evenly. Okay, I'm going to connect this hose here. You can see the little notch there. Got my little C-clip. Push it down. Bring that C-clip in that notch. About 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. Okay. Now I'm going to connect the electrical connection. Push it in and push the white locking mechanism in place. I'm going to take off my little wrapper here. Little duct tape, good for everything. Snug that hose and bring this clip clamp back over the hose to secure it. 3/8 of an inch. Slide it back here. Secure that hose. I'm going to come back here and reseat this hose. There's 2 C-clamp holding devices back here. I'm going to take this plug out. Have a little, I use a foam earplug to hold this guy here. Move the hose back into its desired location, and then adjust the clamp. Well, actually, I might have to do the clamp first. it back into position, clip it in place. Okay. Now I'm going to put the air hose back in, get it oriented so that it's in about the right position. Come in from behind with the 5/16. Make sure it's in the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I'm going to use my fingers to rotate the socket until it snugs up. Now I'm going to take the air box. I'm going to put the air intake into the tube first, then put the two pressure ones here, and then push it down in to the third point of contact. So get it lined up, push down on it, work those two into their slot. Okay, once it is firmly seated, get my air filter, gently rotate the box back. Gonna line it up here with the hose. Remember there's three notches here that sort of act as a pivot. Get them lined up. And then I'm going to put in my hex Torx bolts here and here to secure this and tighten this down with a screwdriver. Okay, finish tightening these two coarse thread screws. That's got the box secured. Bring the hose up. Now there's a little plastic notch or a ring that's got a notch, and the hose has a little protrusion to help you make sure you get it lined up. Bring the hose flush against this ring right here. Last but not least, we're going to reconnect the battery. Now remember, the code will be gone. Now the reset procedure is to simply disconnect the battery for like 30 seconds. Okay, a couple things to note. When we start it, we shouldn't get the light unless it throws an immediate code. Secondly, some of the videos that I saw, none of which were very good in the installation and removal of it, did talk about getting the P101 code cleared, that once you start the engine, do not touch the gas or the transmission for at least 2 minutes, because the airflow sensor has to recalibrate. Okay, so far so good. It's been 2 minutes. Hasn't thrown a code yet, but that doesn't really mean much. The emissions control testing can detect the fact that this has been reset. So unless you drive it 50 miles or so, they will not, you can't just drive to the emission control test place and get your vehicle inspection done. You do have to drive it. Typically 50 miles is the number I've heard.